what's the best martial art for self-defense? Well, there's no instant answer because martial arts means the arts of Mars, the god of war. So, but I can tell you that absolutely Krav Maga. Now, there's a reason why. It's the only martial art in the world standing that's entirely based on an untrained, weaker person defending themselves against multiple trained, stronger opponents and beating them in a real-life situation. This isn't how most of the other martial arts are. They're usually based around people being around the same strength, at least. So that's why I say go to Krav Maga first, because it's the quickest and easiest. In 15 minutes of Krav Maga, you could be more prepared to deal with a real-world fight than 15 days of any other martial art. And I'll stand by that. I will make a 15-minute video, and I've done this for many people, where I just teach them in 15 minutes, like the basics. And that's a little bit what we're going to go through now, because the wasteland, like real life, can be really dangerous. So right off the bat, take what you normally think with martial arts and fighting and just throw it out. Because it isn't necessarily a form or a style that makes Krav Maga so good. It's a mindset. It's the fighter's touch. It's the fighter's mind. It's saying, I will never give up. Never, no matter what. It's being able to know that no matter who approaches you, no matter how old you are, you have a chance. You have a chance. There's always a way to survive. That's, I mean, it makes sense why it's kind of the Jewish martial art, because we've been studying how to fight and how to survive for thousands of years and have survived many times trying to kill ourselves and other people trying to kill us. So we've kept a good track record of how to instantly take out lots of people. And that's what Krav Maga is. So let's go through some of the basics. Right off the bat, one of the first things to understand is that mindset. And that mindset is, I'm going to win. See, most fights doesn't really have to do how much they trained. It's who wants it more. Who wants to win? I will survive. Now, the go-to stance is actually really phenomenal and similar to some Shaolin monk stuff, where basically it's this. It's your hands up. It's like, hey, man, don't really want to fight. Don't really want to fight. But already in here, if you notice some boxing and stuff, you're already able to protect yourself well. And this triangle, okay, this, hey, it doesn't look all that scary or anything, but we can instantly go for the throat, the eyes. Now, this is the important part. Notice the first two things that I said weren't normally things you hear from karate, taekwondo, BJJ, anything else like that. They don't say, first thing you do is go for the eyes. First thing. You keep your hands up, hey, eyes, throat. The groin, a lot of times in self-defense, people say, go for the groin. It's actually not the best place to go because it's really easy to defend. And when you have a lot of adrenaline, I know this. When I used to do taekwondo, I had to fight a fair amount of women because they did it by height and I was really short. And their go-to thing was kick that dude in the balls. So I learned really quickly how to avoid that. And when it happened, there was a couple times I wasn't wearing the cup. You know what? You can take it. So that's why we go for things that nobody can handle. We all see this in movies where there's some huge crazy fight and someone gouges the eye and he wins. Well, why didn't he start with that? Why didn't he start with that thumb right there? Why didn't he start breaking the trachea? Why did he even knuckle up? Why did he say, hey, I'm about ready to fight you? That's just ridiculous. In fact, be like this, hey, because you don't want necessarily to hurt or have to fight. You want to try to diffuse as much as you can. Then when it has to come to it, bam, throat chop. Okay, if you notice, we're not striking with fists. I'm not striking with kicks. These things are really brutal because usually when you get attacked, it is brutal. It's like fighting in a phone booth for anyone that was born before the 90s. It's fighting really close. That's why they call it gutter fighting systems. So for example, from this quick bam here, when I'm actually at the person, if you notice, my hands are at the ears, my thumbs are in the eyeballs, okay? I'm close enough that it's really hard for them to get many strikes in. Now from that, of initial strike, you want to grab the ear and pull downwards as hard as you possibly can. Now the important part of this is to keep the angle. You don't pull this way, okay? Down. That basically takes it off. And I'll tell you, when you got your eye poked and that 60-year-old woman has your ear in her hand, you're thinking things differently. That's what separates Krav Maga from all the other stuff. It's so brutal but it's also so effective. So for example, if I do a quick little throat strike, okay, and like, hey, and I have the chance to back off, they have the chance to back off, and I'll tell you, it doesn't take a lot. If you notice, there's a few ways to do that throat strike. Either with the webbing, this is the easiest way. This is the way that we teach most people right off the bat. The first, I would say, like 2 strikes to learn right off the bat is the straight eye poke. This is actually Bruce Lee's favorite, because you're like, hey man, whatever, bam, doesn't take a lot. From that, you could set up any other move or get away, because usually that's your best option. If someone's bigger or crazier than you, stun them and hopefully get away. Usually they won't go after you unless there's a group of them, which is what Krav Maga is based on fighting. It's based on taking out multiple people quickly and being able to still survive. So that being said, let's go through some other really fun basics, because I've already kind of sped through the eye poke, good throat jab. Now they do have, one of the things that also makes it kind of separate is that they do have a system in which nothing's a strike or a block. Everything is both. You come in with all things. You don't block and then strike. You block and strike. You're always coming in. You're always engaging. You're the one that's aggressive. You need to be more aggressive than your opponent. It's like the honey badger of martial arts. You give no Fs at all. That person comes up to you thinking they got you. Next thing you know, oh my God, they're down going, I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. I'm going to reevaluate all my homophobia and all my transphobia and all my phobias and all those. Because that's what the system is designed against. It was designed so that people of a certain ethnic group could defend against people that hated them because of that. It's so important to understand that there's no refs involved in the real world. There's no tapping out. There's no, you got me. So that's what's so important with Krav Maga, is that it's basically to the death or life and death. That's the whole point of it. But you want to approach life knowing that there's dangers in the world, but you can get through them. They're okay. You can protect yourself and your family and never, ever, ever go more than the other person. It's like taking the low road. The second you go for the extra hit, the second they're down and you hurt them more than you need to, you are now the evil person. You are now wrong. So you need to do everything you can to shut them down, but make them a friend. Now, I know that sounds insane, but I've experienced this. I've done this. I've broken up. I have literally thrown someone on the ground, wrapped them up, and said, I will only let you up when you are my friend. And he had to eventually go, okay, I'm your friend. And we got up, and we shook hands. We laughed it out, and it was the end of it. You see, there's so many different ways, but I'm not going to do nothing. You have to have that fighter's mindset. You have to be able to engage. So now let's go through some fun things. One of my absolute favorites is knowing the science of a knockout. So if we actually want to knock out the opponent, now usually you just want to gouge, poke, get away. Think of it like an X, like you're done. That 45-degree angle, that X angle, that's the angle that you want to hit that jaw. And you don't need to hit it necessarily all that hard, but you want to hit it at that angle. Boom! And you see how our hands are already up? They're already similarly to that angle. Because it just takes a little bit of a push up on that angle to send the brink hitting against the self, and the person drops. So you can really quickly knock people out with what looks like a slap. That's the other important thing in Krav Maga. There's really no closed fist punching unless it's on soft parts, like the liver. It's hard to soft, soft to hard. If you're going to hit the head, you're going to use the palm of your hand. You're going to use your fingers. If they get close to you, you use your teeth. The human can bite about as strong as a Rottweiler. So remember that. You can, if someone has you wrapped up like this and you're going, you can actually tear the throat out. You can also do it with your hands. Rambo does it, and a lot of my friends wrote me like, hey, can you actually do that? Is it humanly possible? And yes, 100% it is. It's pretty gruesome, but yeah, it is. So right off the bat, okay, we have that ability of knowing that knockout strike. Because if you don't have a lot of strength, and you don't really have time or form to get like a good solid punch in, just remember that angle. So hopefully you enjoyed some of these basics. I know I've gone a bit fast, but that's because I wanted to have some fun and wear my Tank Girl outfit and talk a little bit about fighting. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you have, just leave a few comments.